Hi, welcome to Unwind Design. My name is Kimberly. I'm your instructor for today. First things first, we're going to be talking about the colors that we have in front of us. We have our primary colors with white and black and green. So we have our red, blue and yellow, our white and black, and our green. Next, I have an 11 by 14 size canvas. This canvas is vertical instead of horizontal, so we're having it lying down sideways since this is a wider picture. Next, you guys are going to need a fan or a hair dryer to help your process go a little bit smoother, to let our background dry, just so that we can move on a little bit faster to our next steps. Next, the brushes we're going to be using are going to be our large background brush, a flat medium brush, a round tip brush, and a detail brush. Make sure that you guys have plenty of water as well. I have a basin with 2 containers, one for my lighter paint and one for my darker paint, so that I don't have to get up and change my water as often. Again, that is up to you. If you have a sink nearby or somewhere where you can get access to some water, then there's no pressure there. You don't need something that has a lot of water. So we're going to be starting off first with our background. As always, our paint is not ready to use just because it's out of the container, so we have to continue to hydrate it. Be careful that you measure how much you're adding water to it. You don't want it to become clear and transparent. At that point, it starts to become a glaze, so we don't want to make that happen. We want to make it just a little bit smoother than this toothpaste texture and create more of like a smooth sour cream consistency that allows us to spread the paint evenly without that much of a struggle. Okay, so the first color we're going to be starting off with is going to be our white. I'm going to be adding a little bit of water to my brush to make sure that it's nice and soft. And then I'm going to be adding water from my brush to my paint, adding some water, making sure that I smooth out the consistency. I'm squeezing my brush out to release any of the water that's in there. When you press, you tend to release your paint and your water when you press really hard. When you press a little bit lighter, it starts to get a little bit smoother and the water stays inside. And that helps you with blending as well when you don't press as hard. So we are going to be coming in with our blue into our white. And we're going to start off by making a baby blue. I'm going to come back and pick up a little bit more water, and I'm mixing it directly on my baby blue. I never mix my paint right on top. And I do that because I might want to use some of that white later, and we will be using some of that white later. So always try to use the edges around your paint before you directly use what's in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to be mixing in that baby blue. And we are going to be drawing a horizon line. So what is a horizon line? It's where our sky meets our ground. That line that you see at a distance where the earth starts to curve, that is what you call a horizon line. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to go about maybe 1/3 of the page up. So imagine we're cutting the page in half and we're going to cut the lower part in half. That is where our line will be. Okay. So I'm using my brush on the thin side to create this outline, but little by little, I'm going to start to pick up that baby blue and I'm going to start to brush it up towards the top. Again, you want to watch your pressure. If you're pressing too hard, you might be releasing too much paint. See that? When I press really hard, my paint just gets pushed out. It creates really thick lines on the side. And if I want more of a smooth painting, then I have to release that pressure to barely slide my brush over the top. If I need to use the paint that's on the sides, then I will drag my brush along the edge to release that paint to begin to pull it. As you see right over here, it's starting to get a little scratchy. So that is what we call kind of like waffling, because we have a square texture in the background. It leaves all these little square lines that don't get enough paint in them, and we just paint over the top. So we want to make sure that we have enough liquid and enough paint to fill in all of those little gaps and to ensure that we have a fully soft, completed painting. Now, if you're wanting to get that scratchy texture on purpose and you kind of like that style, then go for it. More power to you. It doesn't have to be exactly how I'm doing it. This is your painting. It's going to be going on your wall. And like I always tell everybody in my classes, feel free to get inspired and change it up. We're not trying to plagiarize this painting. We're not trying to be exactly like this painting. We're trying to use it as a sample to kind of make our own version of it, okay? And that's what we're doing right now. We're not copy machines, so there's no way that we can make this painting exactly like the one we're looking at. But we can use it as a reference to do our painting as close as we can so that it looks like the painting that we're trying to accomplish. Okay, so I'm going to continue to bring this up towards the top. When you guys are done with that, you guys can go in and begin to kind of blow dry that out a little bit, just so that it dries and it's ready for our next step. As we start to go higher towards the top, we start to pick up a little bit more blue, and we're going to start getting just a little bit darker, not too dark. Remember, we are painting the sky, so we don't want it to be extremely dark. We just want it to be a little bit of a shade darker so that when we put our clouds, our blue will really stand out. Okay, and so will our clouds against this darker color. We have more of a chance of them standing out than if we painted with just a lighter blue. So again, picking up that darker blue, picking up that white. And we're gonna continue to do this process all the way towards the top. Again, if you are finished with that, you can continue to dry it off, or you can move on to the bottom section. The bottom section is going to be some green and yellow back and forth. Okay. So if you want to do that, again, it's going to be a little bit of green all along the bottom of the horizon line. Okay, we want to keep that line as straight as we can. And then we're going to be grabbing a little bit of yellow to brighten it up. And we're going to continue that all the way towards the bottom. Okay, so again, it is going to be, if you want to add a little bit of red even to that color, it'll make kind of like an orangey brown color when mixed with our green. And we're just going to continue to paint that. Again, it was green with yellow, a little bit of red if you want to add kind of like an orange hue. Remember, this is sort of like a fall painting. Our trees are going to be kind of orange. We're going to have some pumpkins in the front. So if you do want to add some red to that green, go ahead and do that. So again, I'm painting my light blue to my darker blue, and then my green with yellow and a little bit of red if I want to make it a little bit more of a fall color. So let me explain this technique a little bit and why we are getting this color underneath. So the way that you make brown is by mixing your primary colors, okay? So you make brown by mixing your blue, your red, and your yellow. So blue, red, and yellow. Of course, to make your green, you have to mix your blue and yellow. So automatically when you put green on here, there is some blue in there in that color. So of course, when we come in and add some red to it, it's gonna make the color a little bit of brown. And that's why you get that effect. It's not because of the orange that you're adding over the top. It's because of the red combining with what is already there, which is the blue and yellow and considered a primary color, that you start to get this color because you start to mix brown indirectly. So again, blue and yellow make the green. And then when you mix some red into it, you start to make brown. So what do? We already put the green, which is blue and yellow, and we just add a little bit of red to make it a bit brown, or you lighten it up with some yellow just so that it's not too intense. And you start to get more of an orangey dry grass look because of that brown that we made indirectly without knowing. So if you guys ever don't have the color brown, you don't need to have it. You can always make it on your own, again, by using your primary colors combined together. You know what's cool about this is that if you made orange and then added blue, you get the same effect. If you mixed purple and then added yellow, you'd get the same effect because all those colors are made out of the primary colors. Okay, so I'm going to finish adding these details. And you guys can continue to smooth that out. Again, it is important that your paint is nice and smooth when you're doing this so that you don't go on and scratch the paint off of your canvas. If you start to paint over it and your paint is not smooth enough, you could potentially start to scrape off your paint. And that leads to a lot of frustration. It leads to a lot of kind of like wanting to paint over and over it. And at that point, you just kind of have to wait for it to dry. So try to make sure that your paint is nice and damp when you're working with it. We are going to be grabbing our same background brush. Make sure that it's nice and washed. Okay. And we're actually going to be using this brush, and we're going to be using our round tip. Okay. So what we're going to be doing now is picking up our brush, picking up some water, and we're going to be adding that water to our white. So what we're doing with this white is that we're creating a cloud texture. So we're going to make sure that it's nice and smooth, that we're working our paint off the corners. And we are then going to come in with our white nice and glossy. We got a little bit of something on there. Pull that out. We're going to make a little bit of an arch, and we're going to start creating this really rough outline for some clouds. Okay, make sure that your white is not super thick. I did add a little bit of extra water just so that it would be a little bit more see-through. You can still see the blue underneath if you pay close attention. So we're just going to kind of work our way up to the side there. And we're going to fill in with a very light glaze. That's when you make your paint really watery. We're going to come in and just pull in that glaze off to the side to create a hazy cloud consistency. With the corner of my brush, I'm using it to create these little waves at the end so that it looks a little messy and that it looks like the clouds are a little bit more erratic and a little bit more natural with the way that they are moving. Okay, so that's one section right there. Okay, next we're coming in with that same glaze. Again, remember that it's white that's a little bit more on the transparent side. Okay, so when you pull it, you can still see through the palette. You see how you can still see kind of gray? That's actually the transparency of my palette showing through right there. Okay, so we're going to be coming in with that white, and we're going to make another little hill towards the back. We're going to fill that in. That's going to be a little bit towards the left of the center of your canvas. Again, we're going to outline the bottom a little bit, cover that up. And this one, this cloud is actually going to be working its way up towards the left corner or right corner as well. Sorry. Okay, and we're coming in with that. Why we're going to be making these clouds a little erratic as well. And we're just kind of making a little line of cloud going up towards the right, making sure to leave this gap of blue in between that cloud. Okay, if your paint is not thick enough, you can always come back. You see how mine's drying a little bit? You can always come back with a little bit more white and apply that where you want your darkest sections to be. Okay, so when you start to make your clouds a little bit thinner, you start to use the corner of your brush to create these arches. Okay, so I'm creating an arch, another one, and they're different sizes. They're not all the same size. And then I'm coming in the middle and filling that out a little bit messy again. Okay, and with that clear transparent white, we're going to fill in our corners as well, make it look as if there's a cloud that's coming down there. Again, I'm not trying to be super precise with these clouds. They look a little bit messy, so that's the texture that I'm trying to achieve. Kind of like a messy look, as if the air is pulling the condensation loosely in the sky. Again, if our clouds over here start to erase, you can come in with a little bit more black. Not black, I'm sorry, with a little bit more white and start to lighten that up a little bit. Where black came from. I'm not even using black yet. Okay, so again, I'm continuing to use the side of my white and I'm just adding another layer, another little coat there. See, and that's why you paint with glazes, so that it's not too intense. And when it dries towards the back, it dries a little bit lighter and you can go in and apply your color a layer at a time instead of just putting a really thick dark color over the top. Okay, so next we're going to grab a little bit more of that. Really smooth white. Okay, and we're going to start to kind of draw a little bit of a cloud up on the corner here, halfway down our sky, maybe a little bit lower. We're going to start to create these clouds. Okay, again, I'm using the corner of my brush to create that texture. And I'm just kind of making this center bulge coming in towards the right, and it's going to be invading a little bit towards the right lower corner as well on this section. Here we go, we're going towards the right center. Okay, so again, I'm using the corners to create this curve effect, using the corner of my brush, curving it to create that effect, except that I'm just doing it very fast. Okay, if your clouds don't look super fluffy, if they don't look super textured, that's fine. As long as you can see the general form of a cloud, then you're good. The focus is not really the clouds, it's more of the barn and the little pumpkins and the windmill. And we're just gonna smooth it out slightly there. I'm gonna come in the center and just scratch a light amount of cloud on there with the most see-through white that we have. So again, I'm adding a good amount of water. So this may look a little dark right now, but when it dries, it's gonna dry a little bit lighter. See, this is already starting to dry a little bit more. So I actually need to come in with a little bit more white. Look at the difference. It's starting to dry very light because of it being a glaze. So I'm gonna come in and wherever I wanna apply more highlight, I'm gonna start to do that. Wherever I want it to be brighter, like maybe the sun is hitting it, I'm gonna add just a little bit more of a thicker white. Where I want it to be more see-through, I'm gonna add a more watery white. Okay, here it does look a little bit thicker towards the right, and I'm starting to water it down again towards the right section there. If you want to go in and just kind of scratch whatever excess paint you have left on your brush, you can create these movement lines in the background. And when they dry, since it's not really a lot of paint that you're working with, you're going to leave these really nice effects in that sky. So again, wherever you want to make it a little brighter, come in with some of that white. And let's work on making that just a slight bit whiter. Next, when you guys are done with that, you're going to be able to come with your round tip brush and you're going to pick up some of that white, same thing, nice and clear, and you're going to be able to go in there and actually add all the little details you want to add to your clouds. In case you want to add different levels and you don't want to just make it a direct heavy white, this is where this comes in. Okay, so you're doing white, different layers of white and texturing them so it looks like there's different layers on your clouds. See that? Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to do this, giving you guys about maybe 5 minutes so you guys can take your time and not rush. Again, if you want to make it a little bit looser, if you find that your harsh line is a little too sharp, come in with a little bit of water and make that a glaze. You guys are learning how to glaze right now. It's awesome. It's a really good technique, and it really comes in handy for those of you that are a little scared to add paint um, at such a harsh temperature as soon as you start. So this helps you kind of go a little bit lighter, a little bit smoother. It helps you make the transition a little bit easier if you're a little scared of maybe adding too much of a bold color in there. So this is a sped up version of me filling in the clouds. I'm using my smaller brush again to add maybe a bolder, brighter section where I want more highlight. I'm applying a thicker coat of paint. I am also using the corner to make my edges a little jagged. We don't want them to be perfect circles. We want them to be a little bit messy on the tips. And again, I'm adding some of that white where I want my cloud to be the brightest. While you're doing this, you can play around with it. This really helps to add different dimensions and levels so that you can have the glaze beneath, which looks like a shadow, and you have the brightest part up on top, which looks like the highlight or what's getting most of the sunlight. This is such a good practice. I love doing clouds on my free time and just painting different types with different colored backgrounds. Maybe a evening background fading to a very bright background, or working with a lavender or a very light blue or an orange background. And I just like to play with my clouds so that I can kind of get my practice in so that I can learn how to do them better when I finally have decided on a picture where I would like to have clouds in the background. But yeah, have some fun, guys, and we'll be moving on shortly. Moving on, we are going to begin painting our farmhouse. So we're going to bring up our square brush. Actually, you know what? Let's pick up our large background brush again. So let's use our large background brush. Make sure that it's nice and washed off. I mean, we were using white, so it's not really that big of a problem, but just kind of for your sake, make sure that it's washed off. Next, I'm going to be picking up some of this red, and to make it just a little bit darker, since we did use green, I'm going to be picking up with the corner of my brush. Okay, I'm going to be picking up some of that black, and I'm going to be adding it directly to my red, and I'm bringing it just a shade darker. Okay, so we're going for more of a brick red, and we are going to be painting this upwards on our left section. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide our canvas in half, and the left half of that section, we're going to be making our barn here. So we are going to come in on the sides, and we can actually make it a little bit bigger as well. And we are going to be making a straight line going up. We're going to be going slightly down to make it bigger that way. And we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side as well. So we're coming in, doing a vertical line towards the bottom, and then we're going to be leaving about maybe 3 or 4 fingers, depending on how big your hand is, maybe about, let's say, 3-4 inches. And we're going to be painting this line upwards. You see that? So we're creating kind of a box shape here. Let's close that in. And then right above that, we are going to begin to do a triangle. We're connecting it all in the center. And we are going to be filling all of this in with that red, okay? So again, we're kind of bringing it up to that corner. Next, you're going to be picking up some more of that red in your darker red color. And we're going to begin to fill this out. Always remember to pick up a little bit of water. You want to make sure that your consistency is nice and smooth in order to get the appropriate amount of blending on there. You don't want your paint to be too thick or else you're going to struggle with it. Okay, we've talked about this before. So you don't want to struggle with your paint. You want it to be a smooth transition. Okay. And we're going to be painting on the top. This is going to need a couple of coats only because our grass is a little too dark, and we want to kind of paint over that whole thing. So you're going to come in from the top as well, and we are going to be painting downwards, filling in our whole barn. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys some time. I'm going to be filling this in again. If it is a little crooked, look at mine. Mine's a little bit slanted actually. So I'm just going to bring it more towards the middle. Like the painting guru said, Bob Ross, there's no such thing as mistakes, just happy little accidents. So you can always go in and edit that. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys some time to completely finish that. Once you finished it up, add a little bit of more water to your paint. Make sure that this has dried a little bit before you go and apply your second coat. If yours looks a little bit like mine and it looks a little bit too long, we can always come in and also expand it a little bit so you can make it a little bit wider. Okay, so just come into the side. We do want our square to be a little bit more on the wider side. Okay, and we're just gonna go in there and scratch out that line. You guys can totally erase when it comes to painting as well, so don't feel overwhelmed if you think you messed up. You just have to go in there with a little bit of water, and that'll be the perfect thing for you guys to lift your paint with. Okay, lifting is another word for erasing, so we're going to be kind of erasing that line and then moving it over towards the left a little bit. So again, if you guys want to go in and paint this, if you find that it's getting a little scratchy, that just means that you need to come in and pick up a little bit more water. Now, if you're looking for more of a scratchy consistency, again, I'm always encouraging you guys to kind of do your own thing. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine. And I am always encouraging you guys to kind of get creative. We are not trying to make a copy of this painting. We're trying to use it as inspiration for you to be able to paint your own version of it. Okay, so again, your version is better than my version because it comes from you. So don't feel pressured to have to make it exactly like mine. There's no rule that says that it has to be like that. You guys are learning, you guys are starting. So no pressure. Don't be too hard on yourselves. Just kind of take it slow and use this as a time for you to relax, a time for you to be able to get inspired, a time for yourself. This is your time. As you go along, you're going to be able to add several coats. You can let it dry and then go back in and add another one just to thicken the color so that the background doesn't show through and the shed isn't as transparent. It will also help for you to straighten out your outlines on the edges, maybe work on making it a little bit straighter, straightening your roof, straightening your walls. But yeah, take your time and apply a couple of coats. We are now waiting for this to dry. I've already given it some several coats. We're going to wait for it to dry, and then we're going to be moving on to our trees in the back while we are waiting for that. So next, we are going to be using our round tip brush, and we're going to be picking up a little bit of water and some yellow to start making the bushes in the back. We're going to start to pick up a little bit of that yellow, add a little bit of white, and we're going to start to add some dabs to the back, creating a wavy circular motion. So I am not really trying to make this perfectly straight. I'm just kind of shaping out some yellow bushes in the background. Again, I'm picking up a little bit more yellow, more white, and I'm scattering these dabs across the background. I'm not too focused on, again, having them straight, and this is going to be kind of the base for our trees in the back. Next, we're going to grab a little bit of red and add it to that yellow to make our orange. We're going to come in and also add those as dabs in the background. Also spread them out. Make sure that the yellow shows through. And go around spacing them out so that we can add some dimension and we can add some texture to our trees. Okay. So we are now using our orange over the top of this. And we are going to start taking advantage of the fact that we use that orange for the top of our trees to start making the little pumpkins that we have towards the bottom here. Okay, here's one. Here's another little one. Again, we mix our red and yellow to make our orange. And we're going to have that towards the right. Now we're going to do one more pumpkin. Okay, if you want to go on in a little bit later and just apply a second coat over that, if you feel that maybe your paint is a little bit see-through, you can go ahead and do that. Okay, but we're taking advantage of the fact that we're working with our orange up here to work with our orange towards the bottom. Perfect. Okay, so again, we went in with some white and yellow dabs toward the back. Then we went in with some orange, which was our yellow combined with our red. And then next, we're going to be coming in with some red. So now that we're done with the general outline of our pumpkin over here, actually, I'm going to add a little bit more. There we go. Extending that out a little bit. So once we are done with that, we are going to be coming in with our red dots, and we're going to be pressing that also in there to create a more intense look. So again, we're coming in with that red now, and we're continuing to spread that out. Maybe not adding as many red dots as we did the orange and the yellow. And we're going to spread that out. We're going to be doing that towards our left as well, bringing in those red dots. You know what? I did a little bit of a stain right here, so I'm going to add another little pumpkin there. See, there's nothing that you can't fix. I'm doing a tiny little one right there. Okay, there we go. So next, the final color that you're going to be grabbing on here before we go back to our highlight is going to be our green. So we're grabbing our green. Let's mix that into our yellow a little bit. We don't want it to be super rich. We are in fall, so we want the green to be a little bit more faded, a little bit closer to maybe falling off. And we're just going to kind of dab a little bit of green over the top here, kind of combined into our orange. Okay, so our leaves are beginning to turn at this point. Okay, so we're coming in with some more of that blue. Of that green, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the sky. Okay, and we're gonna come in and just add a little bit more of that green loosely on the top here. Again, we want to make it look as if it's transitioning, right? As if these leaves are transitioning into a more fall look. Okay, and next, one more time, we're going over it with our yellow. Maybe our yellow erased a little bit towards the background. So this will be the perfect time for you to come and use your yellow to be able to bring that out again. Okay, I'm beginning to bring a little bit of yellow towards the bottom. Okay, great. So the next thing we're going to be doing, regardless if our paint is a little bit wet, we can still go ahead and do this step, is we're going to be grabbing our detail brush and we're going to be dipping it in our water and then into our paint. We want to smooth out our paint. Our paint is still a little thick and we're wanting to just make it a little softer so that we can control it. And towards our left-hand corner, we're going to begin to draw some trees. So we're coming in with that black outline. Okay. And we're going to begin to extend some branches. So we're doing one solid line. From there, we are making a couple of more lines coming off of the side there. You want to press a little harder when you're closer to the center and then release your brush and just allow the hairs to kind of just slide lightly to create a thin tip. So they start off a little bit thicker and then they get a little bit thinner. Okay, let me see if I can show you guys. So there we go. We're going to come in and we're going to do another one towards the right side of that. Okay, so we're coming in. We're doing that section on the right. And then right in the center, we're going to be doing another little one that tends to go, it looks like if it's going towards the back of that branch at the end. And then this is going to kind of branch out into its own thing as well. Okay, so these are multiple trees just kind of corralled together. Towards the right, we're going to be doing the same thing. So we're starting off with our first tree. It's a little bit thicker towards the base. That's what we need to go back and remember to do with all these. Okay, so we're making it a little bit thicker on the base. And I'm beginning to break these off into a Y. Right here on the right, we're not going to attach that branch. We're going to make it a little bit loose, make it look as if the branch is towards the back of the leaves. We're going to do the same thing on the next one. And I'm just going to continue to do my trees all along the edge here. Again, my lines don't necessarily have to be connected all the way. They can be a little bit split up, a little bit broken. Same thing here. We're coming towards the left. We're coming in towards the right, creating several different branches. Maybe we're going to make a slight crooked tree. Creates a little bit of an S curve there. And then it always branches off. Again, the hardest pressure is towards the base. And then as you release tension, you start to get thinner and more brittle branches towards the top. Okay, right here as well. We're going to do kind of like another tree towards the back. Okay, and there you go. You have a couple of branches in the back area. Since we're using this black, we're going to take advantage and work on our pumpkins as well. So we are going to come in with this black and we're going to begin to outline our pumpkins. Okay, so my line's a little thick here, but if you want to make it slightly thinner, that's acceptable. I would prefer it if you guys did it a little bit thinner. And then I'm going to do a little line. When this dries, we are going to be painting that green, so you won't be able to see that super black, but it'll help become sort of like a shadow. Okay, so we're picking up our detail brush, bringing it around, and then we're going to start making kind of like these orange slices or crescent shapes. So this is a little bit crescent towards the left, it's a little bit crescent towards the right, and then in the middle, it's just going to go straight. And see how we're starting to get that shape there? And we're going to do the same thing on the rest of these. We're going in, we're putting the center. That's where the stem comes from. And then next, we're just going to be going around creating this crescent shape. Okay, you want it to kind of come from the center there. Okay, same thing over here. Creating kind of a little crescent shape. This one's off towards the right a little bit more. This one's off towards the left. Maybe showing slightly more. Okay, and we are going to be going in with a more highlighted color to kind of override these darker lines. Again, this is just a base and it's going to form a really nice shadow when we're done. So again, doing another little one there. Okay, and everything's kind of just stemming from the circle, from the center. So we're doing another little stem there. Our lines. Can kind of look like basketballs. Okay, this bigger one is going to be invading that center one. Okay, this is a bigger section. Oh, and we're going to create another little one right here in the center. And there we go. Next, as we are continuing to work with this block, we're going to start to outline our barn here. So we're going to start first by just making a line across, cutting this triangle section up. So I'm coming in and I'm just bringing my brush directly across. Okay, making it a little bit thick. And then next, off of the sides, we're going to make a line going up and another line going up. We're going to fill that in off the sides with some black. This is going to be the shadow for our roof section here. Okay. And we are going to be outlining our barn. So we're coming in with that direct line, bringing that line straight towards the top. We're going to do the same thing towards the bottom. And this is the perfect time for you to kind of straighten out this painting if maybe it wasn't as straight as you originally intended it to be. You come down towards the bottom. And we start to draw that outline. So this painting, again, is a little rustic. It is a little messy. It is a little rough. That's the intention of this painting. So if you find yourself being a little bit rough with your lines, that's perfectly fine. Again, we're not trying to create an exact replica of this painting. We're trying to get your perspective of it, and the way that you see it, your interpretation of it. Okay, and we're going to continue to bring that line all the way towards the top. So again, we created these triangles towards the top. We created an outline around. We made a thick outline in the center. And then now we're going to create sort of a rectangle right on this line. So we're coming in, going a little bit lower than that line. Just a little bit. And we are going to come in and close that up towards the top. Okay, to fill this in, We're going to be picking up our square brush, remembering to pick up some water. We always want to make our paint nice and smooth so it's more controllable. Just because it comes out of the container doesn't mean it's ready to use. Remember, I've said that before. So we are going to come in and just fill this whole section up with that black. There we go. Want to make sure that you're not getting too much of a glare there. Next, we're going to be sliding our brush off the sides. And we're going to be meeting it right at the top with our black. So I'm going to come in again with that black. And we're going to start to form this roof. Eventually, this will be painted over with some white. And then we're going to be coming in with some black on the opposite side. And we're starting to create that framework for that roof. Next, we are going to be picking up the same brush, our square brush, and we're going to want to kind of open it slightly, okay? So we're going to want the bristles to be just a little bit more separated. And we're going to start to create kind of like a black texture on our barn here. We want it to be just slightly woody. We want to add more of a wood look to it. So I'm going to make sure that my brush is damp, not wet. I'm going to tap it dry lightly on my towel on the right. And then as you can see, I'm creating all of this stippling here. And the reason for that is because my brush is open and I am just kind of pressing that on there so that instead of filling it up with the paint, so that the little hairs that you see that are divided are what create the line of wood on there. So we are going to be coming in from the roof and we're just kind of very lightly dragging that downwards, creating that wood effect. Again, it's going to be the lines on or the little hairs on our brushes that are creating this texture. Okay, and we're going to go back and forth, scratching it, not pressing hard. We don't want to press too hard. We want to go very lightly over it so that the hairs on our brush gives us all these little textures that we can see that are starting to show up on there. Okay, so again, we're dragging our brush, making sure to stipple some more black on there. Okay, or press into without fully glopping the paint on there. You can see through. You can see my brush hair right there. And that's what's creating these little textures that we can see on here. Okay, so we're gonna go on there. Make this wood texture going up and down. And then we're gonna continue to grab some more of that black. And we're gonna do that texture down in the bottom of our barn as well. So you can either do large lines all the way across, up and down. Okay, again, remember to come back and pick up some paint periodically. Since we're not adding too much paint to our brush, we are gonna run out of paint fairly quickly. Again, we don't wanna press very hard. We don't wanna get thick lines. We wanna get all these little thin outlines with each of the hairs creating a different texture. So we're coming up and down. Again, just kind of feathering our brush. We're not really pressing too hard. We're just creating this really nice texture over the top of faux wood. And we're just going over the top of it. And we're going to continue that all the way across. So again, I'm picking up some more of that black and I'm just kind of pressing it into my already open brush. As you can see, it's see-through. And I'm just continuing that texture all the way across. We are now picking up our detail brush. Again, the same brush we were using to make our trees. And we are going to be drawing our windmill here. So we are going to be picking up some water, picking up our black, and we are going to make 3 dots. Okay, so we're going to kind of come a little bit lower. We're going to go a little bit lower than our barn here. So we're just going to kind of do a line there. Okay, don't draw it. I actually was not supposed to do that. I put it too close. Okay, so again, we're going a little bit lower and we're going to do our 3 dots closest to the pumpkin and then 1 right in the middle. So what we are going to do is we are going to bring this center line as much as we can straight up, as much as we can. So let's just try to be as straight as possible. If we're not, again, this is more of a rustic painting. So if you happen to be a little bit rougher and your line isn't so straight, don't fret, don't stress out. You'll be fine. We are going to be going over it with a little bit of white, and that's really going to help us. Okay, so we are going to be going straight up, and then about halfway across the roof, we're going to be doing a circle right over the middle of it, okay? Okay, so here we go. We have a circle right above. And right off the side, we're going to bring these lines and kind of match them up on the sides as well. Okay, so we're creating a tower at this moment. So we're bringing it up and we're going to try to match it. Okay, again, you want to make sure that you can pick up enough paint on your brush so that you don't have to do this in sections and you can just make a single straight line with one stroke instead of doing a bunch of little lines there. Okay, so again, we are going to be going back with a little bit of white, and that's really going to add a highlight to this and make it pop. Next, I'm bringing this one straight down. And then in the middle, we're going to be creating sort of a diamond effect, but we're going to start towards the bottom and we're going to make an X. Okay, I'm going to make my lines a little bit thicker. There we go. Okay. So then we're just going to keep creating those X's all the way towards the top. And there we go. And then from here, we're going to be going towards the back and we're going to make a larger circle. Okay, so again, we're going to skip about maybe an inch down, maybe an inch and a half. And we're going to go in and do a circle as best we can. Okay, so from this circle, we are going to have some uneven blades here. So not all our blades are going to be super straight, but they are going to be coming in from this center section, okay? So we're going to be making one blade coming out, closing it in. This lower blade is a little bit bigger and a little bit longer. Okay, again, this is supposed to be a fun painting. No stress. It doesn't have to be even. Right here in the back, we're going to add just a slight other one. So that's 1, 2, 3. Okay, again, this is just on our corner of our circle. Then from the middle, we're going to go in and do another one. Okay. And then we're just going to continue to do about maybe 3 more. Our lines start small and then get bigger towards the end. Okay. When you are done with that, we're going to go in with our black brush, with our square brush, and we're going to be picking up some black in our brush, and we're going to be painting in these thicker sections on our windmill. Okay, and we're going to continue to fill these in. All right, guys, so now that we've accomplished our black on most of our sections here, we're going to be grabbing that same detail brush, and we're going to be picking up, make sure that it's nice and washed. We're going to be picking up a little bit of green and a little bit of yellow. We're going to be mixing those on the side. Again, a little bit of green and yellow, mixing those on the sides. And we're just going to come in and kind of scrape a little bit of that into the stems of our pumpkins. Okay, so again, maybe a little bit more yellow. Right here on top, we might want to use a little bit more yellow just because it is a little bit farther. We want it to stand out more. Okay, next we're going to be grabbing a little bit of that yellow. Again, we're going to be mixing a light amount of orange into it, but it's going to be mostly yellow. Make sure that you wash your brush off so that you don't have any more green left over. Okay, so it's going to be a very, very light orange, mostly yellow. And we are going to pick up a little bit of white and mix it into that orange. Okay, so we should be getting more of like a highlighted color now. So it's going to be a very light orange with some white. Pick up a little bit more of that. A little bit more of that all red. Here we go. Nice and light. And we're going to start to create some highlights on our pumpkin here. So I'm going over some of that the darker lines that I made. Okay, again, I'm just adding a little bit of highlights around. I'm doing the same thing over here. If you didn't like the certain way that maybe some sections turned out, you can totally take initiative right now and just fix those. But we're just kind of adding some highlights over the top. I'm sticking towards the left on the left side. I'm going more towards the right on the lines that are towards the right. And I'm just kind of making a highlight next to them. I'm going to do the same thing here. So towards the right, the highlight goes to the right. Towards the left, the highlight goes towards the left. And in the center, it just kind of stays in the middle. Okay. Same thing here, right in the middle, left, and right gets outlined. Okay, right in the middle. This is on the right, this is on the right. Okay, middle, right, right, right. And there we go. So we should have a little bit more of a highlight on our pumpkins there. Next, we're gonna come in with this white and our round tip brush. And we're actually gonna be making a lighter gray. So I'm picking up this black and I'm mixing it to the side of my white. And I'm making a little bit of a lighter gray. Okay. So this light gray, you can make it a little darker if you want to. It doesn't have to be too light. Again, that is up to you and your personal style or liking. And I'm going to be picking this up and I'm going to be making an outline on the sides of these. See? So there's an outline on the side. There's an outline towards the top. Okay. And then on the top, we start to see the highlight more towards the right section. Okay, so in the beginning, our highlight is towards the left. And then once we start to get to the middle and the left, our highlights start to be more on the right. Okay, you're gonna come in with that gray and just kind of scratch in that gray in towards the inside of this windmill. Okay, so again, we're kind of creating a highlight there, you see that? And we're gonna do the same thing towards the right now on the left-hand side. If you want to go in with a little bit more white, just to create more of a drastic highlight, you can totally just go in and add a little bit of white, but don't add too much. Okay, you do want to see it mostly gray. If you want to add just a little bit of white, then that's fine, but don't overwhelm it with that white. Next, I'm going to be grabbing a little bit more of that gray, and I'm just going to kind of scratch towards the top of my wheel here. I'm going to scratch in that gray, and that's going to make my wheel look a little bit thinner as well. For those of you that like to do makeup, this is what you would call contouring. So we are contouring our windmill to make it look as if it's got different levels, shadows, highlights, and so on. So next, I'm going to pick up a little bit of my white, and I am going to go around my wheel. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to be just kind of scratching in between some of these lines. Okay, we do want the black to still stand out. We also want to create a little bit more dimension. We want to make it look as if there's surfaces that are getting hit by light. Don't forget to do the center bar as well. Remember to do those dots in the bottom also. Coming back with that white, and I am now going to begin to add some of that highlight to the base of our windmill. So to the tower itself. So there we go. If you want to come back and add a little bit of white highlight to some of these pumpkins, you can go ahead and do that. That'll add an extra level of highlight to them. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to catch up with this, and then we're going to be moving on. All right, guys, so moving on, we are going to be picking up a little bit of our white, and we are going to begin to add some highlights to our barn. So first off, we are going to be grabbing our flat brush. Okay, so our little square brush. Make sure that it's nice and white, since we're going to be nice and washed, because we're going to be grabbing some white with it. So we are washing off our brush. We're picking up some white, and we're going to be scratching this up forward towards the top. So we're picking up that white, hardly any pressure. Cool, and we're just going to kind of do this right towards the center of our painting. Okay, next, we're going to be coming on the opposite side, and we're going to do the same thing to the right-hand side. We're going to use that same square brush to create a frame around this center window that we made. So we're going to put the white underneath, right over the black. The white is going to go above the black on the top. And then we're going to be filling in the sides. Okay, so we are making sort of a window. Next, with that same white, we're going to be creating a bar across the top there. Let me make sure I don't have too much water. I wouldn't want that to overspill. So I'm coming in with my brush, and I'm going to begin to do a long vertical line across. So this is going to be our base for our barn doors. Okay. Then across the center, we're going to make a line towards the bottom. Okay, so right in the middle of the whole thing. Our direct line. And then instead of using our brush wideways, we're going to use it a little bit on the longer and thinner side. So we are going to be coming in. Make sure that you leave a gap at the end there. That doesn't have to be fully filled in. Okay, we're coming in with a little bit more white. Again, I'm not going all the way towards the bottom. I'm going to go right above that black line, and then I'm going to close this in. Then we're going to be making X's in between each of these rectangles. There's one. Coming in with our other corner. Here's another one. And here is another one. Again, these classes are for beginners, so don't feel intimidated in taking these classes. Don't be intimidated. And don't be too self-conscious with what your piece looks like. If you're a beginner, remember it is going to take you a couple of tries to get a little bit better. I've been painting for over 20 years at this point. And it's been difficult, but you know what? It's totally worth it. As long as you guys don't give up, it'll totally be worth it. So next, we are picking up our detail brush, okay, so our smallest brush, and we're picking up some more white, and we are actually going to be making lines across here. So kind of like this is sort of like a vent. Okay, we're gonna do some more lines. Again, this doesn't need to be too straight. I'm gonna use my white to just create one more outline around the whole thing. And then we're done with that section. What we have to do next is fill in our grass. So we're actually going to be filling in some grass down here. Okay. Let me add some highlight right here. Looks like I went over a little bit. Okay. So we're going to be picking up some green and a little bit of black. Let me make this a little dark again. There we go. Okay. So we're going to be picking up some green and some black. We're going to be bringing the black into our green. It's always better to add the darkest color to the lightest color. It's easier to control. And then right in the bottom, we're just going to start to draw these little wisps of grass, okay? So if you want to go ahead and make a line first, you can make your line completely across. Okay. And then from this line, you can go in and start creating all these little wisps of grass working their way in towards the back of these trees here, towards the foliage section. Okay, so I'm applying some of that green. Okay, be careful to not go over our tower. Kind of go behind it. And that's how we're totally going to seal this to make it look a little prettier, make it look more complete. When you guys are done with this painting, you guys can go ahead and paint the surrounding areas in the back so that your canvas looks complete. It's a really good option for those of you that don't want to frame your pieces, or you're wondering how you're going to hang it up and if it's going to look good. You can just paint the edges. You can paint it a baby blue, you can paint it a green, you can paint it an orange. Since this is like a fall picture, you can paint it brown. And then that way when you hang it, it looks a little bit more complete. I'm also going to go in and just add a little bit of these dark green dots into my trees as well. Again, nice and loose. All right, and then from here, you're going to be moving down to the right-hand section. And with your detail brush and some white, you are going to come in and do your signature. After you're done with your signature, you are done. Thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully I see you soon. If you are on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and like down below. I would really appreciate it. And if you're on my website, subscribe as well. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.